Good morning. I'm Mary Moglia-Cannon, your service leader. We are joined by Jenny Mombrea on piano and Jeremy Johnchik on audiovisual. Today, Reverend Tina Simson is here to lead a favorite of some of our long-standing members, the Flower Communion. It's a Unitarian ritual that harkens back almost a century. For those who don't know her yet, Tina Simson is an interfaith minister ordained through One Spirit Interfaith Seminary and certified in spiritual counseling, and is an associate member of the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association. Reverend Tina has a spiritual counseling practice and advocates for the well-being of children through the Children's Agenda Interfaith Collaborative. Tina also served for 8 years as Minister of Spiritual Development and Pastoral Care at the First Unitarian Church of Rochester, New York, from where she retired in June of 2018. Since 2020, we have been so fortunate that Reverend Tina has both the time and interest in UUEA's progress as a congregation. It's always good to see you in person. It makes me want to cry when I see Tina. I love her so much. Welcome, Reverend Tina, and thank you for making the trip from Rochester. And welcome all members, friends, and visitors to UU of East Aurora. We are a community in which all people are welcome, regardless of belief systems, ethnicities, race, gender, sexual orientation, or economic standing. You are in a safe space. COVID numbers keep improving, and we have coffee hour after the service. Even if you have already chatted with a few people before settling in, please take a moment to stand in body or spirit and say a quick hello to someone else. To our participants on Zoom, hi friends, we know you're out there. Take a moment to acknowledge each other with a wave. Before we begin, I have 2 announcements. I'm very excited for next week's music service, coordinated and performed by the very talented Jeff Maris. It includes guest performers and gifted members of UUEA, like Rosie Owens and Martin Cohn, who actually sing in the BPO chorus. We will not have an online Sunday service next week. So if you can make it to church in person, this is a Sunday you won't want to miss. Service will be followed by a catered lunch. Next, I want to remind everyone that the church is closed on July 3rd and that we are continuing Sunday services through the summer. The good news is this gives us more opportunities to be together. The other side of the coin is that we can always use more service leaders and people in the kitchen. So if you have any inclination that you want to give up an hour of your Sunday and take on one of those roles, please see me after the service or email me during the week. Are there any other announcements?
Good morning. As your resident COVID tracker, I am happy to announce that the risk level in Erie County has dropped to low. Yay! So it was medium, but now it's low. So we're as safe as we've been in quite a while, 6 months at least. Secondly, the pledge drive is coming to its end, and you guys just blew me away this year. We budgeted what we thought was a pretty aggressive $30,000, and we hit $37,000. Up from 28 last year. Thank you.
It was good news, Connie, about the budget. And our prelude by Jenny Mombrea is the Flower Duet. Please join me in saying the chalice lighting words printed on your order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Happy Father's Day to all of us, to those of you who are fathers and to those of you who had one. No matter how challenging, difficult your father may have been, or glorious and perfect, it's a day to celebrate having been born and having someone guide us as best they could. So I'm a little interested in the puppies we have around here today. I think this is awesome. We have these wonderful little souls. I'm a particular fan of schnauzers, so I just saw a cute little one walk by. There he is, raised up. So I wanted to tell you a brief story about a man who was my grandfather. I called him Gramps. His name was Gus. Now, he came to the United States as an illegal alien. He stowed away on a cattle boat during World War I after being captured by the French. He fought on the German side, World War I, not the Nazis. And he was captured by the French. He escaped on a cattle boat, the USS Kansan, which docked into Boston Harbor. So he was okay for a while because the United States wasn't in the war yet. And so he met my grandmother, married, and she was about to have their first child when the United States government entered the war and put my grandfather into a prisoner of war camp in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. He stayed there for the duration of the war and then came out, and my grandmother miraculously got pregnant a second time for my dad. And it was hard, I think, having gone from being in Germany to being in an internment camp here in the United States, and then trying to make a living with a stigma of being the wrong kind of American. He became a naturalized citizen, but in 1929, when the Great Depression, sorry, I missed that word, the Depression hit, he and my grandmother had a horrible time taking care of their children and their lives, holding jobs and being alien Germans. So my grandfather did something as a father that he he regretted for the rest of his life. He put his 2 young children on a ship and sent them back to Germany to be cared for by his sister and his parents because my grandmother and my grandfather couldn't care for them by themselves. Now, this was a true hardship to my grandfather, and he took it through his whole life and was sorry for what he had done, even though in the moment it was, in fact, the best thing he could do. Now, the thing you need to know about my grandfather is that once his 2 boys signed up in World War II to fight my dad and his brother, what happened was my grandfather and my grandmother decided to take in foster children. They took in 19 foster children in their life. And even to the day he died, the foster children in and around his town that he cared for in Massachusetts were just abundantly grateful and around the family, as if they were just another sibling to my dad. And when I asked my grandfather later in life, why did you take in so many kids? He said, I wanted to offer them hope. I'm not sure I did that to my own boys, but I wanted to offer them hope. And that's why we come to church, right? My grandfather wasn't a religious man. In fact, I think he was the first person to introduce me to the word agnostic. And yet, he offered hope to 19 children, and to me as his granddaughter, and whether he believed it or not, to his own sons, my father and my uncle. So welcome to our celebration of life. Happy Father's Day, however it shows up for you. And I think we have another song to sing. No? Just the offering. Okay, welcome. And here's Mary.
We are reminded that UUEA cannot do anything without members and friends showing up and supporting each other. Sincere thanks to those who participate in events, volunteer their time, share their talents, or who are in a position to be generous. If you are inclined to give after the service, there is a plate on the bookshelf on your way out, or you may do so online at uuea.org. The offertory hymn is Spirit of Life, number 123.
As we begin our ritual of flower communion this morning, I ask for anyone who might volunteer to bring our gifts of beautiful flowers, which are on the bookcase in the back, up and set them on the piano. These are the offerings that you brought this morning, and even if you forgot one, you get to take one home when you go. Thank you so much. Aren't they beautiful? So I want to give you a little bit of history about this, because we don't have many rituals in Unitarian Universalism that are the same every year. And one of the things we don't do as a liberal church is offer communion in the way that a lot of Christian churches do. So this is our celebration of flower communion. Here's where it came from. It was created by Norbert Capek, who was born in 1870 and died in 1942. He founded the Unitarian Universalist Church in Czechoslovakia and introduced this special service to that church on June 4th in 1923. See, for some time he felt that there needed to be some symbolic ritual that would bind people more closely together. The format had to be one that did not alienate anyone who had forsaken some of their religious traditions. The traditional Christian communion service with bread and wine was unacceptable to the members of his congregation because of their strong reaction against the state-sponsored Catholic faith at the time. Now, I have to remind you that in many Unitarian Universalist churches, communion is still celebrated. It depends on the congregation, and it depends on the church and what their strong beliefs are. But in our country, there are some that still celebrate. So Capek turned to his native beauty on the countryside for elements of communion which would be genuine to him and to those people in his congregation. The simple service resulted. It was a success that was held yearly just before summer recess of the church. It's good to know that churches in 1923 also recessed for the summer, although you're not going to, which is good. The flower communion was brought to the United States in 1940 by Dr. Capek's wife, Maya von Capek. The Czech-born Maya had met Capek in New York City while they were studying for his PhD. And it was her urging that Norbert left the Baptist ministry and turned to Unitarian Universalists. The Capeks returned to Czechoslovakia and then came back to the United States. And it's here that Maya actually introduced flower communion. Now, unfortunately, they were unable to return to Prague due to the World War II outbreak. And it wasn't until the war was over and Capek's death in a concentration camp was revealed From the beginning of the service, it has spread to many Unitarian Universalist congregations all over the world. So here's how it goes. People are asked to bring a flower of their choice, either from their gardens or a field or a roadside or Wegmans, whatever works. It signifies what they bring of their own free will and join in the celebration of summer and in the celebration of community. Now, we'll have a small ritual where we get to share some thoughts and allow ourselves to sink into what it means to be community here in UUEA. And then at the end of that, I will invite all of you to come up and choose a flower to take home with you, a gift from one of your co-members of this church community. This, according to Capek and his wife Maya, is a statement of our connection. It's a statement of our love for one another as a community. A few weeks ago, I was driving home from the grocery store with my 7-year-old grandson, Henry. On the side of the road was a homeless man, disheveled and dirty, asking for money. My grandson got quite upset. "Help him, Grandma. Do something." I didn't have any cash, which I would have gladly handed over, and frankly, I was at a loss about what to do. We passed the man, and my grandson cried all the way home. "Don't cry, sweetheart," I said. "Grandma, I have to cry. I have to know how much my heart hurts." Once I got home, I offered to get some cash and bring it back. "No," he told me, "that won't help, Grandma. He's so lonely. He has no one to be his friend." And then I cried too. I cried so I would know how much pain my heart felt for my grandson who was learning about what this world is like, and for the dear homeless man, and for myself, because it's been a hard year, another hard year. It's been tough, right? I could make a list, but you all know why it's been tough. But here in this community, we have one another, and that is no small thing. With our flower communion today, friends, we mark the end of another church year, a year of community and companionship, a year of blessing one another with the grace of listening and telling and seeing and being seen. Such companionship is a lifeline in this turbulent world. It heals the loneliness and it comforts the heart. Our worship theme this month asks us to celebrate blessings. And I am forever grateful to understand that none of us is perfect. Our ability to live in this troubled time and yet bless each day is the true test of our Unitarian Universalism. When we bless what is worthy, even the smallest bits of kindness and joy, it helps us grow as individuals and as a community. And there is so much to bless with kindness and joy right now. Your community has been through incredibly turbulent times here in Western New York. And we hold that as we celebrate our sense of love and commitment to all that is true in the world. Without our place here, this community, to bring our joy, our kindness, our turbulence, our struggle, our sadness, it's hard to feel all of those things deeply. It's so much better to do them in community with one another. Without friends who remind us that we deserve blessings, we can so easily stay focused and wrapped up in our own disappointments and in the troubles of the world. without a church that declares we are born good and worthy of blessings and praise. The contrary vision of humans as sinners can easily sneak in and take hold. Simply put, it is not just friends we find here, but lifelines. Lifelines to beauty, to joy, to yes, lifelines to blessings, and lifelines to feeling what it feels like in our hearts, the sadness, the joy, and the love we share. So I want you to all take a moment and in spirit or for real, close your eyes and allow yourself to sink into these questions. How has this community been a lifeline or a blessing to the beauty and joy for you this year? Now imagine for a moment the flower you brought this morning and allow it to symbolize the gift you give each time you walk through the door of this church, or each time you switch on the Zoom app, your gift of time, compassion, hard work, and love. Think of a friendship here at church that has been particularly important to you, even life-saving to you. Think of a Soul Matters group or another group experience you had this year in which you were able to share honestly and be vulnerable in a setting of trust and safety. Think of a sermon that comforted you or maybe even made you uncomfortable in a helpful way. What challenged you to change just as you needed to change? Think of a way in which you were invited to put your faith into action or serve needs greater than your own this year. Consider something that helped break you out of the self-centered meanness of so much of our culture these days. Imagine for a moment when the music of our worship healed you with its beauty or brought you back to life with its energy. Think for a moment when you learned something that you couldn't wait to tell your family or your friends. And remember, the first time you returned to this sanctuary after the long lockdown of pandemic life. And consider for a moment whether you are new to this church today or a longtime member. Imagine that moment when you walked in and felt deeply at home. and here in this home, which we love so deeply. Allow yourselves to open your eyes, and as you are moved, come forward and choose a flower from our gifts to take with you home. And once you're seated, we will bless the flowers together. It is easy when we hold a blossom to praise its beauty, its unique place in the universe. We feel its soft bloom whisper against our cheek. If you're brave, you can bury your nose and breathe in its fragrant essence. We hold the paper-thin petals, praying with our fingers gently and cautiously so not to cause damage. We touch its center and marvel at the pollen that dusts our fingers and spreads into the wind. May we always be grateful to be on this earth and witness such wonder. May we hold all beauty with this tenderness, and may we remember to hold one another in this same way, with praise and gratitude. For the unique gifts we share as a community, we are grateful. May we remember that even in the most trying times, the world gives us love and exquisite splendor. And it is our calling to praise and bless this gift and to bless each day. So as we close this ritual, please turn to the person near you. Show them your flower. Look into their face. And with these words, say thank you and bless you and amen. And we're going to extinguish our chalice. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. We carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing words come to us today from Indian author Arundhati Roy from her book, The Cost of Living. To love, to be loved, to never forget our own insignificance, to never get used to the unspeakable violence and vulgar disparity of the life around you, to seek joy in the saddest places, to pursue beauty, to never simplify what is complicated or complicate what is simple, to respect strength, never power, above all, to watch, to try, to understand, and to never look away. And never, never to forget another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. May you hear her breath on the summer breeze. Thank you. And here ends our service.